Hey everybody! So today I'm going to show you how to pressure can some potatoes. I got them on a good deal at the grocery store, so I just wanted to show you guys a way to preserve any fruits, any vegetables that you get, be it the garden, be it the grocery store, anywhere, that you have an excess of that you think will go bad before you use it. So this is just another step of staying ahead of the game and making sure you got a full pantry, making sure that everything is good for the winter as it comes up, as everything is prepping for the winter stock. So yeah, I got these guys on for a good deal. You want to basically pressure can any vegetables that have low acidity or anything that has low acidity. So soups get pressure canned, potatoes, corn, beans, beets, all those vegetables will get pressure canned. Meats, if you want to do that, pressure canned. Your fruits will be water bath canned. First learning, try it outside and be very cautious. Watch it like a hawk, just because again, it's dangerous. Once you get the hang of it, once you know how to do it, it's actually very easy, just tedious and time consuming, but definitely something I'd say to stick in that bank of knowledge, because it's an essential survival skill. Because when you hunt and you fish and you forage, what do you have to do afterwards? You got to preserve it somehow. So finding these methods of preservation for the things you harvest is key. It's actually probably one of the most important things you should know before you even go out and harvest any animals or bring back any foraged things from the woods, just so you don't waste what you've just gathered. You know, it's disrespectful to let anything that you've harvested out in nature go to waste, and this is just how I feel. Keep posted, and I'm going to show you guys how to can these potatoes. Okay, so now all you're going to want to do is start chopping your potatoes. Again, no uniform order, just chop away. I'm going to start with one bag. Chop, chop, chop. Now again, you can do this with the carrots, beans, beets. I've done it with all of these vegetables. As when I'm done the gardening season, the first thing I do is whatever we don't use, I'll can the rest of it, and so we'll no longer have the fresh produce, we'll have canned produce after, so it'll take us into the winter, and that's why we have been eating beets and beans and potatoes and carrots from our garden. Even all the way up to now, I still have some in the pantry because I can everything. I'm actually going to start canning the deer we get, because it saves on freezer space, so the ground, you can can it as well. I also every year like to get a couple salmons that I can and make tuna, and that's our tuna for the year. So it's just different ways of thinking, a different mindset when it comes to living off the land and the outdoors. Use the seasons to your advantage, and then preserve what you don't eat, because you're going to need that later on. And then that's how you can enjoy amazing fish meals or turkey and deer in the middle of the winter when the seasons are closed, because you've preserved everything that you've hunted and gathered from before. And it's just being smart about it, you know? get some of these rinsed out. And we'll potatoes are washed up. They've gone through their citric acid rinse, which I used this. I used the Fruit Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Protector from Bernardin. So that's the one that I used. I'm not sponsored by anything, I'm just letting you know what I use. So I use the Bernardin Fruit and Vegetable Protector, but you can use lemon juice, you can use, again, those little vitamin C tabs, you can use any kind of citric acid, and you just want to sit it in the cold ice water for less than a minute, take it out, rinse it, and then strain it all off again, okay? Now, I've seen recipes before where they want you to pre-boil, kind of like a blanch the potatoes. You don't need to do this step. It's not necessary. It's actually just an extra step. If you want to, go ahead. You can do that. I don't, and my potatoes turn out fine every time. So now let's go through. I have the jars here. Now, the jars I've put through the dishwasher. They've gone through the sanitize rinse. They're really, really hot, and you just want to make sure they're sterilized and sanitized, especially before you go to do any kind of canning of anything. Make sure all your utensils are sanitized, your funnels, your cups, anything that you're using to do the canning process, make sure that it's sanitized. I can't stress that anymore because that's one of the most important parts of doing the canning. And another thing too is your snap lids that you use. Sorry, if you can see them. Actually, here, I'll just get that. So the snap lids that you use, sit them in hot water. Doesn't have to be boiling. Actually, don't boil the water, just hot water. Down there. And you're gonna let those sit maybe about 5-10 minutes before you actually go to do your canning or before you prepare your jars. It's just to soften up the rubber on it so that it actually creates a better seal. But make sure that when you do take them out, you dry off the snap lids before you place them on the jars. That's an important step. Otherwise, sometimes they won't properly seal because there'll be water stuck in between the rubber and on the rims. We have our jars. I'm doing quart jars. Before this, sorry, I should mention you wanted to have a large pot of water, just hot water, plain hot water, to top your jars off when your potatoes are in there. So let's get it going. So we're going to take our scoop and you're going to just start scooping them in. Now I say with potatoes, you're going to do 1-2 scoops and then pick it up and you're going to give it a shake. Now when you shake it, you're compacting the potatoes down further into the jar, and it's just kind of wiggling them into place, you know? So, like that, especially when you get to the top, you want to do it a little bit more. It's more forgiving at the bottom, but at the top you need to do it a bit more. It's amazing how many potatoes you can fit into one of these jars. Now, I use this for Paul and I. One jar is great for a dinner for Paul and I. As you can see, they're going all in there. Keep scooping. Keep on. Now I give about 2-inch clearance at the top of the rim for the water excess. You should always give 2-inch clearance. About 1 inch to 2-inch clearance on anything that you can, just to make sure that nothing goes over, doesn't overflow. Okay, so now what you're going to do is take the salt, so you need preserving salt, and you're just going to take, now I do 1 teaspoon for a quart, half a teaspoon for 500 mils, or a half quart. So you just take it, level it off, and 1. Each jar gets 1. and just pour it over top. You don't gotta be fancy because we're gonna be putting water on this. There we go. And now that we're done with this, so that's 1 teaspoon for a quart, half a teaspoon for half quart. And now we're going to get our funnel back, and we're just going to start topping up our jars with water. So you're going to, this is where the hot water comes into play. You're going to take it and just fill right to the bottom of the base line in your jars. That should give you an inch clearance of water. So you're going to take it right there. All your potatoes should be covered at this point. And the hot water dissolves the salt that you've just put on and disperses it through the whole jar. Just be very careful because you are dealing with boiling hot water. So just be cautious of children or animals around you. And now I'm just going to get a paper towel. And what you want to do is you're going to start tapping. Actually, I'm just going to put a little bit more water in this one. I don't like that there's not that much water in those. Just tap it up just a little bit. Okay. Oh, that one's too much. If it's too much water, just take it out. That's okay. It's not going to. There we go. It's fine. All right, so now you want to take a paper towel and just make sure you wipe your rims. Make sure there's no salt on it, no potato, no water. Make sure they're all cleaned up. There you go. And after this, the next crucial step is to tap your jars. Now when you tap your jars, you're going to bring up all the air bubbles. Give it a few good taps, and you'll even see them come up as you're tapping. All the air bubbles out because you don't want to have that air pressure, because when you're pressure sealing or when you're pressure canning, essentially you're causing a pressure seal that sucks all that air out. So any little bit helps. Help. Okay, so now what I like to do is take your little magnet and get your jars or get your lids. Take out a lid, dry it off. Again, I'm an advocate for saying just dry it off so it seals properly. And you put your lid on. And then we put our rings on. Now the rings were also put in hot water to sterilize them, as everything that you use should be sterilized. So now this is done. We're going to get our pressure canner started. I'm going to show you guys how to do that in just a second. But your jars are canned. First step done. Okay, so when you're prepping your canner, I like to use some vinegar because I have calcium in my water. So if you use just a couple tablespoons of vinegar, it'll actually not make your jars go cloudy, because if you don't, my jars will all go cloudy and it'll look like they got dust on them. And that's from the calcium. So I just like to use a couple drops of vinegar, and you go. So I put in my vinegar, and then I do a rule of thumb of 2 inches of water. Basically to my second knuckle is what I go by. on my index finger. There was a little bit extra in here than I wanted, so I'm going to take it out, as you don't want too much water in your pressure canner. Now, you want to get it on a medium temperature. I would say about a high to medium, depending on how hot your stove gets, or if you do it outside on the fire, the gas fire, which I also do. And you can also use this method over the fire, campfire, which is another reason why it's so invaluable to learn this, because if you don't have electricity and you still need to preserve your food, you can over campfire, because it's versatile and can be used in many different cooking scenarios. So we're going to just start by getting our water heated up. Again, that's about 2 inches of water in your pressure canner with a little bit of vinegar, and you want to make sure you have your guard at the bottom. Okay, so I'll just show you quickly what the guard looks like. I'm just going to take out this. The guard is just literally a piece of metal like that sits in the bottom of your pressure canner, and it basically just separates the bottom of your pressure canner from your jars so your jars don't explode. Okay, so we'll set our cans in. Okay, 5. So we could get 5 jars out of this. Not bad. There we go. Once your jars are in, now you don't want it bubbling at this point. That's why you just wanted to get it heated up so that your jars and your water are pretty much the same temperature. Then you're going to take your lid and you're going to fasten it on. Now when it comes to a pressure canner, there's normally a guide. My guide goes from here. So pop it on and then seal. Lid on. You're not going to put your gauge on at first. We just have to wait for this to heat up. So I like to put my gauge on the side, make sure everything's closed up on it. Make sure the gauge is off to the side. Let your canner heat up, and yeah, we'll be back. Okay, so when you hear this hissing, that's when you know you're at your venting stage. So at that point, it's probably about almost 20 minutes from when you actually start it. You're going to hear the hissing, and you're going to want to vent for 10 minutes. So again, it's when your venting starts, when you can feel a lot of the steam pushing through, so you can actually feel it push against your hand, and you can hear that hissing. Okay, 10 minutes from then. Okay, it's now been venting for 10 minutes, so we're going to take our weight and place it on the pressure canner. Now this is where you want to be really careful and watch your pressure canner like a hawk. It's just a caution, I like to let you know. Alright, let's put our weight on. And put it, just kind of turn it till you don't hear the sizzling. And at this point, it's going to start to build pressure. So I like to just turn my pressure canner down only a little bit, again. And then watch it build the pressure. And I'll just kind of show you guys what I mean by that as it goes through the stages. Okay? Just be very careful and make sure you research before you get to this point, okay? Just really make sure you know what you're doing. Right, we're now at 10 pounds of pressure. So as you can see there, we're at the 10 mark. I'm now going to turn down my stove, and I'm going to watch this, because at this point you want it to stay in between the 10 and the 15. There's a little circle there. You can see it's almost like, I would say, about 13 pounds of pressure. You want to keep it between there. And that will be for 40 minutes. Now this is the same for your carrots, your beets, peas, anything like that that you want to pressure can and preserve. That's what you'll use. 10 pounds of pressure for 40 minutes. Alright. And remember, just be very cautious and careful and do not let it go above the 20. Okay? Awesome. Pressure canner. Okay, so another thing to remember is if your pressure canner ever does
go over or you feel like it's getting too high in your pressure, don't remove the weight, because when you remove the weight, you throw off the pressure balance, and that in the end could cause some problems. So just keep the weight on, turn the heat off, and walk away, and just step away from the unit. So that's all you have to do, is just turn the heat off. Don't remove the weight. With mine, I have a vent adjustment, so I can, as you see, adjust the vent, but don't ever take it off. You want to keep it around here. It's just a tip. Okay, so we've reached 40 minutes. Now we just need to turn off our heat. So just let everything be at this point. Let it all depressurize, let it cool down. Your jars may pop while they're in there, but you'll be able to tell when you open it. Most times by the time I open it, my jars aren't all pinged. But if you let it go for a little while, like overnight, like most people do, then they will be pinged as well. So I like to let my pressure canner go or sit for about an hour after I turn the heat off, just to make sure that everything's cooled down enough and the pressure has gone down to 0. And that's the main thing, is to make sure on your gauge that it is all the way down to 0 before you take your weight off and before you open the pressure canner. Now that is important, because if you were to remove the weight or open it up before it was depressurized, your jars will purge. And what I mean by that is that all the liquid inside of your jars will come rushing out, and it's like a volcano. I haven't had that happen to me personally yet, knock on wood. Yeah, pressure's down to 0. It's been sitting for a little over an hour. So we're going to open it up. Now remember, at this point, it's still going to be really, really hot. So be very careful. Take your weight off. And now open your machine. Open your pressure canner. Now, when you lift the lid up, remember to hold it away from you so the steam doesn't come up in your face. There you go. See? And just pop that down here. You can grab your can grabber, your jar grabber. I'm going to take them out. Look at those things. Isn't that awesome? And now you have canned potatoes. And this guy hasn't popped yet, I can tell, because there's a little tab in the middle and it's still pinged up, but this one has. And you can tell there. So that pinged inside of the pressure canner when I was letting it sit. So this one's fully sealed, and once it's cooled, can be put inside of the cupboard. We didn't have any jars break, which is good. And now we're just waiting for them to ping. Oh, there's one. That was really light, but that one pinged. So at this point, I would just kind of let the canner cool down again, and just a little bit more with the water. You don't have to mess around with it. And leave your jars out here, because they're going to start sealing the rest of the way. You'll hear a bunch of like ping. And that's how you know that it's fully sealed and everything's good. And you can put it in your pantry. Okay, so that's how you pressure can potatoes. I'll do soup as my next recipe, and I'll show you guys how you can pressure can some soup. And that's a good way to also fill the pantry with different kinds of things. Ah, see? Pinged. Cool. So now it's looking like they're all sealed. Awesome. That's what a canner wants to see.